what are the things we actually do when once we connect to a data connector. Now, today I am going to talk about the connection types. So yesterday's session I ended by saying that tomorrow's for the next agendas for tomorrow will be the import and the connection types that I'm going to discuss. And the three types of connection that we work with Power BI is import, direct query, and live connection. Now let us see how we can explore the types of connections. So for this session, I'll be using the import and a direct query, and we'll see with a hands-on example how we can use the two types of connection. And for the live connection analysis service, in our upcoming discussion on Power BI, I'll be using some scenario to describe this particular connection type. So in the later part of our discussion, I'll be taking up on the live connection with a hands-on example, and we'll see. For today's session, let us see how we can explore the import and the direct query connection type in Power BI. So for this particular example, I'll be using a SQL Server connection type. So where I'll be connecting to a SQL Server and I'll try to fetch the data using these two types of connection. Now, the first is import. So as the name is clear enough, is where we select the tables and columns are imported to the Power BI desktop. So not only the table details, but all the data along with the column we fetch to the Power BI desktop, and we create and interact with the visualization. Now let us see how we can implement an import connection in Power BI. So for this, let me fire up my application. So this is the console. This is the Power BI desktop application. So from here, we'll be see how we can establish an import connection. So for this, as I said, everything starts with the get data option. Now what I can do, I can click on this get data option, and over here we can see a SQL Server connector. So I click on this particular SQL Server connector, and this is the first time that I'm going to access a data which is remotely stored in a SQL Server. Now, the moment I select the SQL Server connection type, we can see there's a pop-up option which is asking for the server credentials. So let me supply the server credentials for this. And so this is the server credentials, and the other option, the database option is an optional where we can choose not to give the database options. So we can also proceed just with the server credential. Now if you can watch carefully, there is an option just below the database text box is the data connectivity mode. Now this is where everything starts. So there are two options over here. The first is import and the second one is direct query. For this example, let us use the import connectivity mode. Now, as I discussed in the definition, import connectivity means when we establish an import connection type, we actually import all the table data along with the table details to the Power BI desktop. So I have supplied the server details. So my server name is Panther, and I'll select the import option, connectivity mode, and I'll click on OK. Now we can see that the server, the tables, the database which are available in my server are all have getting populated over here in this preview window. Now let us connect to our database. So what I can do, I have a database called AdventureWorks 2019. So I can click on this particular database, and we have a table over here. These are all the tables which are there available in this particular database. Now let us select a table from here. Like I'm going for this particular human resource schema under which the department table is there. And let me select one more table. So I'll go for the human resource schema again, and I'll be selecting this employee table over here. Now what I can do, this time what I will do, I'll click on load directly. So instead of going to the Power Query editor, because this data set which I'm using is already a structured data set and it doesn't need any kind of data transformation. When I say doesn't need means it doesn't, there is no such requirement of doing any kind of data transformation for this particular example. So I'll just directly click on load. So I repeat again, I have established a connection with the SQL server with the server details, and I'm using the import connection type. Now I'll click on load, and the two table that I have selected will be loaded to this particular Power BI desktop environment. So you can see both the table that we have selected, the human resource department and employee, this table have been loaded to this, been updated to in this Power BI desktop environment. Now the question is, what is the import connectivity? As I said in the definition, it imports all the table data along with the column. Now I can see the table name over here. I can see the columns associated with each of the tables. Now if I go to the model view, the data view over here, if I click on any of the table, I can see all the data that are there in the table have been bought from the SQL Server database and stored in this Power BI desktop environment, which uses a X velocity technology to store the data when we load the data to the Power BI desktop. Now we can see all the table and the data. If you go to the model, you can see both the table schema are available over here. Now in import connectivity type, as per the definition, we are able to see all the details of the table along with the data, the column name and the table details. Now we can use this table data for creating reports. So I select a blank visual, that is a text report, and for this I selected the text table, and let us create a simple report where I want the department ID and the name of the department. Now you can see the department ID. This is sample data actually. So you can see the department ID and the department name available over here. The same thing we can use for the other table also. Now the question is, the best part of import connectivity type is that it applies to all the data connectors that are available in Power BI desktop. If you go to this get data option, all the thumbnail plus, if you click on the more option over here, we can see that import connectors is applicable. You can establish an import connection type with all the available data connectors which are available over here. So that is the advantage of using an import connection type. Now the next question is, then what is the difference between an import connection type and a direct query? Now for this, let us go and see, and let us establish a new connection from the Power BI desktop and see how direct query actually works. Now before I close this particular session, this particular example, I want you to focus on this particular three options. The first is the report view, the second is the data view, and the third is the model view. Now for import query connection type, the import connection type, all the three options were working properly. So we were able to access all the three options which are available over here in terms of the report. Now let us see what happens to these options when I establish a direct query connection type. So let me remove this particular table from here. Let me clean this particular database. I can remove these tables from here. And I'll again establish a connection for the establishing connection with the SQL Server. So I'll click on Get Data and I'll select the SQL Server option. Now SQL Server is a database which stores data in a tabular format. So I'm taking a SQL Server session on every Thursday and Friday at 4:30 in the afternoon. So you can join that particular session if you want to have an in-depth knowledge of SQL, how SQL Server works, how we work with the different types of functions and formulas, how we create a table, how we alter a table. So I have already taken 2 sessions. You can get the recording into our official YouTube channel, iNeuron Intelligence. So if you can just catch up with that particular session. So tomorrow at 4:30, I will be coming up with some new topics on SQL Server. So this is what SQL Server. We are trying to establish a connection over there. So I'll supply the SQL Server connect credentials over here, server details. And this time, instead of import, I will select a direct query option and I'll click on OK. And over here, I'll go for the same database, that is AdventureWorks 2019. So I'll click on this particular database and I'll go for the same table, that is the human resource department. So I got for human resource employee, and this time let me go for a human resource job candidate. Let me select this employee department and let me click on OK, or let me click on load. So I've established a direct query connection type, this time with the SQL Server. I've selected 2 tables from the AdventureWorks 2019 database, and I have selected the human resource employee and the human resource employee department, and I click on load and we'll try to establish a connection with this particular database. So we can see we are creating a connection, and this time we are able to establish a connection called direct query. Now what is the definition of direct query? It states that no data is imported or copied into the Power BI desktop. Only the schema of the table is copied in the Power BI desktop, and all queries are directly done in the data source. Now to make this definition more clear to you, let us go back to the example where I have established a connection with the SQL Server, and you can see if you can keep an eye on this particular option on the left hand side. In import connection type, there were 3 options: the report view, the data view, and the model view. But for direct query, we are having only 2 views, because in direct query the data of the table remains in the data source. We only bring the schema of the table, and we can see only the schema of the table, where we can see the table name and the columns which are available over here. Now we can see both the table, there is no data view option available over here, because in direct query we establish a direct connection with the data source and we only bring the table schema details, not the data. That doesn't mean that we cannot perform any operations on that. We can create a report. You can click on this table name and you can see the column names are available over here. Now if I select a text table, a visual, and I bring any column, for example business entity ID, from the human resource employee, you can see the data available over here, 290. Now if I don't summarize the data, you can see all the business ID over here. But this data we are directly fetching from the data source. This data has not been imported to the Power BI desktop, and that is a limitations of a direct query, because of the reason that we cannot import any data in a direct query connection type. Some of the data modeling options are not available for direct query. Now when I say some of the data modeling options, I will try to show you those options when I will be discussing the data model part. Some of the DAX concepts or modeling concepts are not applicable. First. Second, direct query doesn't work with some of the data connectors. The data connectors, when I say the data connectors which are available over here. So some of the options, like if I click on more, I click on more, in some of the options the direct query option doesn't works for, and that's why there is some limitations. But direct query is very appropriate. It's a very what you can say, it's a best option when you're working with big data source. Yeah, that's the limitations of big direct query. So it doesn't work for some of the data connectors, and it doesn't some of the data modeling techniques are not applicable on direct query. Now this was an example of a direct query that I wanted to share with you. However, I will request you guys to explore these two connection types where you can see some more facts, because this particular connection type are two different types of connections which we can do only with the remote data source, or the data source which are data were stored in other locations or in other data connectors type of. So you can use this kind of connection. So you can explore these two connections. Now for the third connection type, I will coming up with an example where I will be trying to connect with my SQL Server analysis service, where I will try to show you. So in today's session, I will not be discussing the live connection. However, I have a dedicated session for live connections where I will take a hands-on example, and I can discuss on that. But before that, let us see what live connection is all about. In live connection, we just have the connection string with the schema and the data. In analysis service, it is assumed that the data is already structured. The analysis of data is already structured, and any report level measure should be created directly in the data source. Now an example for this will be very handy for you. However, in my upcoming sessions, I will coming up with this particular scenario where I will be discussing this analysis service. So this was the three types of connection type that I wanted to discuss. So the first is import, second is direct query, and the third is live connections. And we have seen how we can establish an import and a direct query connection type. The next example where I'm going to work with how we can connect to a PDF file. Now let us first clear this particular screen. Let us right click and delete these tables over here. Now the next example that I'm going to work with is how we can connect to a PDF file. Now for that, we'll again go back to get data option, and this time we can select the PDF file option from here. Now you can see in the thumbnail over here there is no PDF file connector available, so we'll click on more. And we can see under the all file section we have the PDF option over here. Now let's select the PDF option. A PDF file format is a very common file format which is used in the telecommunication sector. So there are a lot of files, data which is captured in this particular sector is captured in a PDF file. PDF stands for portable document format. A lot of scanned documents, a lot of manuals are basically used in a PDF format. It's far more secure than any other file format. It's not the only secure format, but it's one of the most secure format through which we can store the data. Now the question is, when we come across a PDF file, there can be a text data available in that particular file. There can be some data which is arranged in form of rows and columns or in a tabular format. Now the question is how Power BI recognize that which data is to be extracted from this particular file, because Power BI only recognize the table data. Now what happens when you connect to a PDF file, we actually Power BI actually starts scanning that particular document, and it only extract those data which are available in a tabular format. Now what I can do, I can select this PDF file, click on connect, and we can see there's a data over here. There's a PDF file format that is a school data. So let us connect to that particular data, GSPS underscore school 17, and let us connect to this particular PDF file. Now you can see the moment I connect to this particular PDF file, Power BI has started scanning this file and it has extracted those data which are available in this particular file in a tabular format. Now over here we can see there are a lot of tables which has been extracted along with the page numbers. So page 1 has 2 tables, page 2 has couple of tables, and 3, and so on. Now let us select a table from here, and I have selected the table 7 from page 2. And what I can do, and as I select this particular table, we can see in the snapshot part in the right hand side that this table requires a certain transformation. How? We can see that the column headers are not updated. We can see the first row of the data contains certain junk value, some decimal or some missing value. So we can remove this kind of data from this table, and we can structure this table before we move forward with the reporting process. So as I said, for data transformation, we use the Power Query editor. So I'll click on transform data to access the Power Query editor. And here we go. We can see the data over here, and we can see the column headers are not updated properly. So let us start fixing the issue first. Now this is what we do on a day-to-day basis. So if we feel that the data, if there is a requirement to transform the data, we will fix that particular data. The first thing we can do start with is to change the table name, the query name. So for changing that, we can go to the properties section and you can select this particular table, and let's name this as a school data. The next issue that we need to fix is to remove the first row from this table, because this particular row contains certain junk value where you can see some dot or some missing some number which doesn't match with the other data in the record. For that, we can go to the home. Under the remove row option, you can click on this remove row and we can remove the top row. So there is an option over here which is written over here as remove top row. So I can select this remove top row option and let me name the numerical value 1 over here. So because I want to remove only the first row, so I have just given 1 over here for the first row and click OK. Now we can see that the first row has been removed. So the second issue has been fixed. The third issue is to update the column headers. Now let us name this column headers as per the data that they contain. So what I can do, in order to update the column headers, we can double click on the column name and let us name this as serial number. Again, double click on the second column and let us name this as age details. The third column, let us name it as values, and the fourth column, let us name it as percentage. So we can see that we have updated all the column headers. We have removed the row with the junk value and we have updated the table name over here. Now let's apply these changes, and we can apply these changes by selecting the close and apply option under the home menu in the extreme left hand side corner in the top. So I click on close and apply, and let us apply all the changes that we have done over here. Now you can see the table school data along with the column details has been successfully uploaded to this report view section. Now you can use this particular table for further reporting. So we can use again a text table for this, and we can just bring the details like age details, the percentage, and so on. We can just play around with this. We can format this particular table. We can just go to the format section, and we can increase the style, increase the size of this particular text from the format section, and we can just again resize the table. So this is how we can connect to a PDF file, and we can extract the data from that particular file. Now the mechanism that Power BI follows for extracting data to a PDF file is that it scans the particular PDF file and extract the data which are available in the tabular format. The next example that I'm going to talk about is how we connect to a folder through Power BI desktop. Now for that, let me first discuss the scenario. Now for example, you are maintaining a sales data of a product based company. Now the sales comes to you for every month, or you might be having multiple folders, sales report in a single folder. Now what we can do, Power BI allows you to connect to that particular folder, and you can select the files from that particular folder, and you can combine those files into a single file, and you can create a new file, and you can use that file for further reporting. For example, if you have a sales data for monthly sales data stored in a single folder, you don't have to go and individually bring those folder one by one to the Power BI desktop. What you can do, you can directly establish a connection with that particular folder, and you can select those files, you can combine those files, and you can make a single file. Now there's one criteria that you need to keep in mind before you connect to a folder. All the files available in the folder should be of the same type with the same column type and ID, but can have a different data stored in them. All the files will be of the same type with the same number of column, but with a different data can be stored. But the data column should be of the same type and ID. Now let us see how we can establish a connection with a folder, and how we can bring those files which are available in that particular folder, and we can combine those files. So let me clear this particular screen. And let me click on get data, click on more. And over here we can see under the all category, we have a folder option over here. Or you can also get this folder option under the file category. So you can select this folder option, click on connect, and the moment I select that particular folder, we'll get an option where we can see the folder path over here. Now what you can do, we can click on, either you can copy paste the folder path over here, or you can browse through this particular folder. And you can see there's a folder called product info. So I'll select this particular product info folder, click on OK, and you can see the path of that particular folder has been updated over here in this particular text box. Now I can click on OK, and Power BI will establish a connection with that particular folder, where we can see there are two kinds of file available over here. Now both the file are Excel file, the Excel workbook, with the extension of .xlsx, and with the other information available in terms of the date accessed, modified, created, and the attributes, and along with the folder path. Now, if you come down and see in the left hand side, right hand side down corner, we have four options. 3 out of 4 options we know, which is load, transform data, and a cancel. And there's a fourth option over here called combine. Now, this combine option allows you to combine and transform the data and combine and load the data. So instead of using this particular combine option, we can also go and access the transform data option. So this transform data option, which is the Power Query editor, will also allow us to do the same combining the file by using the options over there. So let me click on transform data. And we can see the same preview of the file that we were able to see in the navigator window, where we can see the name, extension, and everything. Now, if you can see on the first column of this particular file information, where it is written content, just beside the content in the right hand side, there is an icon over here where 2 arrows pointing downward. Now, if I hover my mouse over this particular icon, there is a tooltip saying that you can combine the files using this particular option. So let us click on this particular option over here, and Power Query editor will help you to combine these two particular files. Now there is an option over here, pop-up window, where it shows combine file option. Now let us see the sample. So both the files are available over here. You can see in the sample file option, the employee detail and the employee region. So we can click on OK. And we can see the moment I click on OK, both the files are getting combined together into a single file. Now you can see that both the file over here has been combined to a single file. And how we can know that? If you keep an eye on the source.name column, you can see the full file name. The first name was employee details and the second was employee region. Now both the file has been successfully combined with the combine option that we have got in the Power Query editor. Now what we can do? We can click on close and apply. And we can get this particular file as a product info file into the Power BI desktop in the report view section. So you can see the product info file along with all the details in terms of the column name and salary. Everything has been updated over here, and the same detail you can find it over here also. You can see the file data over here, and if you keep an eye on the first column, you can see both the files has been successfully combined. You can choose to remove this column, so you can do a right click for over here in the source.name, and you can choose to remove this column if you don't need any column, this column particular for further use. So you can delete this particular column over here, and we have got a clean and structured file where we have combined the two files into a single file by establishing a connection with a folder. So this is how we can establish a connection with a folder. However, there are a few things that I need to keep in mind, that the file should be of the same column, same type and ID, but can have a different data content. Now in some cases, if you are combining two files and you have a duplicate data, this particular option will not remove the duplicate data if you combine the file. You have to use the Power Query transform option again to remove the duplicate file, where you can remove the duplicate rows by using the remove row option under the home menu. The next example that I'm going to talk about is how we can connect to a OData Feed website. Now, this is the first time that I'm going to connect to a website. So OData Feed website is a kind of a website which provide guidelines to build APIs. Now let me show you this particular website, how it works. So this is the OData Feed website. This is odata.org. So this particular website actually defines the set of best practices for defining APIs. So this is a RESTful APIs. Now, a lot of you people might not know what is an API. Now, API stands for Application Program Interface. Now, what is an application program interface? The best example that we can have of an API is a payment gateway. An API is a piece of program which is written for performing a specific task. Now, nowadays whenever we make a purchase from any online website or portal, so while checking out of that particular website, we have to make a payment. Now, that particular payment processor is a good example of an API. So that particular payment processor is an API which is a piece of program which is intended for performing a specific function, and that is what I call an API. Now, this particular website helps us to build APIs by following the certain guidelines. Now let us connect to one of the part of this particular website. Now, one of the section of this particular website contains certain data. Now let me show you that data. So this is the data that particular website contains. Now let us connect to this particular part of this particular website. So this is a service section of the OData Feed org, and this particular section contains certain data. Let us connect to this particular link and bring all this data to the Power BI desktop application. So let me remove this particular table from here. And let me click on get data option. And over here we can see there's a data connector called OData Feed. So I'll click on OData Feed. And the moment I click on OData Feed, there is an option where I have to paste the URL details over here. So let us click on this, paste the URL details over here and click on OK. Now, the moment I click on the URL, I've established a connection with the URL. You can see that all the data that is available, all the tables that will be available in this particular URL has been extracted properly to the Power BI desktop. Now let us select some of the tables from here. For example, let us go and select the region table, the order, the product. So these are some of the familiar table which we can understand that this table might contain the data related to products. This table might contain a data related to demographic, and this table might contain a data related to certain products or orders that has been done with this particular any particular organization. Now let us click on transform data. Let me delete these groups from here. It will create a confusion for us. Fine. Now what we have done, we have selected the three tables from the OData Feed website section and we have brought those data over here. Now we can see the region, orders, product, everything over here. Now we can see if we keep a glance on each of the tables. So first the table region, you can see all the table headers are updated, all the order tables are updated properly, and all the product table is also updated. So there is no much transformation needed for these tables. Now what I can do, I can click on close and apply and see whether we can bring this table to the report view section of the Power BI or not. So you can see all the queries for all the three tables are getting applied, and these tables will be uploaded to the Power BI desktop application environment. And here we go. We are able to see that all the tables like orders, product and regions has been successfully uploaded over here. Now if you come to the data view, now the idea behind this particular example was to how to establish a connection to a website and how we can bring the data that is there in the particular website by simply selecting a link and pasting that link to this Power BI desktop application. And for this example, the best was the OData Feed website that I selected to choose. Now what if you want to connect to a live website? Now what if the website, the data is dynamic, the data is changing, the website is getting updated every time? How we can establish a connection with a live website? Now let me show you a live website for this. Now this is a worldometers.info. Now this is the COVID-19 section that I'm going to show you. Now this particular website keeps a track of all the COVID-19 cases that are going around the world, that are being reported around the world for the different countries. Now this is a very interesting example that I'm going to show you. So this is a live website that is capturing all the data. You can see the last update for this particular website was made today only. So this is a live website which contains all the COVID-19 cases that has been reported around the world. So you can see the coronavirus cases, number of fatality, number of recoveries, and the whole world is actually fighting against this particular pandemic issue. I hope we have overcome this particular thing very soon, and this is the biggest challenge that human civilization is facing after a long time. Now this particular website is keeping a track of all the data in terms of the total cases, total deaths, new deaths, total recoveries, in terms of the different countries. And you can see USA and India is actually leading this particular thing in terms of the total cases, and all the cases in terms of the highest to lowest cases has been reported over here. Now let us connect to this particular website. Now after this example, you will be able to learn two things. First, how we can connect to a live website to a Power BI desktop. Second, how we can work with custom tables, how we can create a custom table or a table by example by accessing a live website. For this, what I can do, I can select this particular link over here. Let me go to my Power BI desktop. Let me remove these tables first so that I can make a clean example for you. Now let me click on get data, and over here we can see there's an option called web. I can click on this particular web option and I will get the same option that I was getting in terms of the OData Feed. Now let me paste this particular link over here. Now there's a one important thing that I want to highlight over here. Now sometimes what happens when you try to establish a connection to a live web, sometimes Power BI takes time to establish a connection. That can be due to many obvious reasons, that the website is either the website is getting updated or the website is very slow. So in that case, you have to try once or twice, and then it will be you can easily establish a connection with that particular website. So I click on OK. And you can see that the Power BI is establishing a connection with this particular live website. So I will show you two examples from this particular link. The first, how we can connect and bring the data from this particular website, live website, and second, how we can create a custom table from this particular website. So as I said that it takes some time, sometimes it takes some time to establish a connection with this particular website. However, after one or two try, you can easily establish a connection. It will not take more than that. Now here we go. We can see the connection has been established, and we can see that table. There are two sections of table. One is HTML tables, where 3 HTML table and 7 suggested table. Now we can ignore the suggested tables because these tables are all the reference table which are used for creating this HTML table. Now out of this 3 HTML table, you can select the table 1. If I select table 1, you can see the same table which was available in the website. You can see the same table over here in terms of the data from the table, like the total cases and the total number of cases in terms of USA, India, everything. Now in the top 4 rows of this particular table shows the world data and the continent wise data. So 3 continents, you can see Asia, North America, South America, or continent data, and then the world data are being. Now let us transform this data. This data needs a bit of transformation before we load this particular table to the Power BI desktop. So what I can do, I can click on transform data. And let us do some kind of changes. So what we can do, we can remove the first column from this, because this column is an index column which contains the serial number. So we can remove this column. So you can do a right click and you can remove this column from here. Now the second thing, let us remove the world option and some of the other options like total options which is there over here. So for that, what you can do, you can click on this downward arrow and you can go to this particular option, and you can first remove the blank option from here, and you can go down and remove the world option. So before that, I can remove the total option from here. So we don't need the total option over here, and after that we can remove and go to the world option. Now you can click on OK. And you can see some of the world option and everything has been removed from here. Now this data looks quite good, like quite structured, because we have removed some of the options. What you can do, you can change the table name. You can name this table as web table. Now I'm showing you how we can connect to a live website and bring that data over here. So I have removed some of the options like the world, the total cases, so which I feel that I don't want in my data, and I have also changed the table name. And now let's click on close and apply. Now we can see that the web table with all the details of the column has been updated, but you can see that few columns are there which are headers are not updated properly. So what you can do, you can go back to the Power Query editor once more. So from the view report section under the home menu, click on transform data option over here, and let's go and remove those columns which are headers are not updated. Now you can go over here and you can see some of the columns like 16, 17, 18, 19 contains only null values. So let us remove this column. So you can hold down your control key and you can select this column, and you can do right click and remove these selected columns, and again click on close and apply. And you can just allow this particular changes to be applied on this particular table. Now this is how we can bring the web table. You can see the table which is available in the web page is easily we have brought this particular table on my Power BI desktop. Now let us create some reports. I wanted to know the total cases in terms of the country. So what I can do, I have selected a bar graph over here. I can bring the blank bar graph over here, and I can bring the country over here into the access, and the total cases reported into the value section. Now you can see the total cases reported for each of the countries has been properly, where USA and India is leading this particular total cases count, and the above Asia is at the highest in terms of the continents. So this kind of data we can bring, and you can easily create report. Now if you can go over to the LinkedIn, and if you just start follow some of the users who are actively contributing to the Power BI community, you can see there are a lot of people who are actually posting their COVID-19 dashboard in terms of the which they have created using Power BI over LinkedIn. You can just go and see their work, what are the information that they are trying. Some of the information may be specific to a particular region. Some of the information that you can create is in terms of the number, the people who under a specific age group where the fatality rate is very high. Now I'm just giving you some of the points based on which you can create your own dashboard on a COVID-19, where you can create a country specific or an age group specific or a particular region specific data. So we can make a report on the fatality rate, we can make a report on the recovery rate. So there are a lot of data points that you have on which you can make a COVID-19 COVID-19 dashboard, and you can refer to this particular website, because this particular website is gives you the accurate information. Much of the information is very accurate over here, so you can follow this particular website and you can just connect this particular website, and you can do a little bit of brainstorming as by what way we can use this particular data and what are the other information that we can fetch from this particular data. Now the next example, I will be using the same website to create a custom table. Now why we need to create a custom table? For example, you don't want all the columns to be updated over here. You don't want all the columns to get uploaded to your Power BI desktop, because the more columns, the physical columns you get into system, the Power BI desktop, the report performance may affect, because the more columns is more data you are bringing. Now what if I want to go with only two columns, the country and the total cases? I want only these two columns, and the rest of the column I want to ignore. So I have an option by which I can create a custom table by connecting to a live website. Now let us see how we can achieve that thing. So you can again go back to this transform data. So I will keep this particular data, this web table, keeping along this data, I will try to connect to the same data source. So what I can do in the Power Query editor, we can make a connection on the go, means in between a report. So for that, what you can go, you can click on this new source under the home menu, and over here also you will find a web data connector option. Click on this, paste that link over here, click on OK. And you can see that the Power Query editor or the Power BI desktop is establishing connection with this particular web page. So we have already one table, the web table that is there into the model. Now we are creating one more table, and that table will be a user defined table. That means a custom table. The data for which will be also be fetched from the website only. Now in this example, you will see how we can create a table by example. So there's again a connection loss between those websites. So let me establish a connection once more. So it's taking some time to establish a connection. However, we can wait for this because sometimes it takes some time, because this is a very important example that I want to show you how we can create custom tables from a live website in Power BI. Now the connection was established. Now in order to create a custom table, we'll be using this particular option, add table using examples. And if you can see in the left hand side down corner, there is an option called add table using examples. I click on this particular option, and I'll go back, and you can see there are two sections in this particular screen. Let me use this particular option to make the screen big. So you can see the snapshot of the web page over here in the top section, and you can see there's a one section below which contains a blank table along with a blank column. Now what I can do, I can make this screen a big, and let us create a custom table. So for this, what I want to create a table which would contain the country details and the total cases. So let me come to the second part of this particular screen where I can see a blank table and a blank column. So first let us update the column headers. So I can click on the column header, and let's name this particular column header as country, and select the first row of this particular column. and let us type USA. The moment I type USA, you can see there are a lot of references that has been populated below. These are called examples. This is what when I say add table using examples. Now what I can do, I can select the USA from here and I can update this particular row. Now one thing you should be very careful, you should use the same case, the uppercase and the lowercase, the same way it's written over here. So it's a very case specific, case sensitive steps that you need to follow. So the exact case that has been used over here in the column, you have to use that particular style only. Now the second row, let me type India. I can select India, use your tab and update the second row. Now click on the third row. Now you can see the moment I click on the third row, all the other data has been automatically populated over here. I don't have to feed all the data over here in this particular other rows in this particular column. Now, this is what I mean a table by example. You don't have to write all the data. After filling the first few rows, automatically the data will be fetched from the particular web table over here in this particular column. Now you can see the data has been fetched the same manner it is been presented over here. After India we have Brazil. After Brazil we have Russia, Peru, Colombia. Now the same way we'll create the second column. So I'll click on this particular star mark to insert one more column over here. And let us double click on this particular column header and let me name this particular cases as total cases. And let me click on this particular row over here. And against USA, I have to feed the same number that is available over here, that is updated over here. So what I can do, I can write 6, 5, just a minute. So I'll select the first row and the number against USA is 6, 514, 433. So I'll type the same number 6, 514, 6, 514, 433. And you can select this number from the drop down and update this particular row. The second row, select the second row. Now for India it is 4, 374, 314. So it's 4, 374, 314, comma 4, 374, 314. So I'll select this data and click tab to select this particular data from the drop down. Now I can click on the third row and you can see the rest of the data will be automatically populated for the rest of the rows in this column. Now you can see for the data against Brazil, Russia, Peru and the other subsequent countries has been automatically populated. Now this is the best example that I wanted to show you when I'm talking about add tables using examples in Power BI. So we have connected to a live website. We have created a web table at the first step, and the second we have created a custom table using the table by example option in Power BI in Power Query Editor. Now I click OK. Now the moment I click OK, you can see in this particular section there will be one more section added called custom tables. And under custom table you can see the table 11 over here. So this is the table 11 that we have created, the custom table. Now I click on OK over here. And you can see the table 11 is getting loaded to the Power Query Editor section. Now you can see table 11 with both the columns, that is the country and the total cases, are being updated over here. So we have created this particular table by selecting the country and the total cases and by using the table by example. Now let me change this table 11 name to and update it as a custom table or custom web table. And let me click on close and apply to upload this particular table to the Power View, the report view section of the Power Query desktop on the Power BI desktop. Now you can see there are two tables. The web table was earlier there in the under this field option. Now you can see the custom table with these two columns. As per our requirement, we are able to make a custom table and we were able to upload this table successfully. Now I can use this particular table for making a report, the same report I can use. I can click on this bar graph and I can just go and bring the country into the access and the total cases into the value, and we are done. We can make the same table, same report using the custom table also. So this is how we can establish a connection with the live website, and we can create two kinds of table. One is web table, the another is custom web table for this. And we can bring those table over here and we can just continue our reporting structure like that. Now this was an example that I wanted to present in terms of connecting to a web page. So we have discussed on how we can establish a connection on a web or a particular folder, PDF, how we can establish a connection to a static website, how we can establish to a connection with a live web page, and the types of connection by establishing connecting to the SQL server. And we have also seen how the types of connection between import and what is the difference between import connection type and direct query connection type. Now this was all of the type of connections that I wanted to discuss for this particular connection type sections. The next thing that I'm going to talk about is the Power Query Editor. So now we have seen, we are all used to this Power Query Editor. Now let us see what are the options that we can use from the Power Query Editor for transforming our data. So today let's have a walkthrough of the Power Query Editor in detail, and from the next session we'll start discussing about how we can use the Power Query Editor. Now let us first clean this particular section and let us connect to a different data set to access the Power Query Editor. So let me delete this particular option. Now we are going to the next module of Power BI, that is data transformation, which is taken care by the Power Query Editor, which is a self-service ETL tool of Power BI desktop. Now while discussing the data connection part, I have given you a glance of the transform data by which we can access the Power Query Editor and we can use some of the options. Now let's get into in depth of the data transformation concept, where we'll be working with the Power Query editor uh, by using the other options that are available over here. For this, let me connect to a data set. I'll click on Excel and let me connect to a data set over here like employee details. And today let me give you a walkthrough of the options that are available over here in Power Query editor. So I'll select this particular table, click on transform data. And this is the Power Query editor, which by now you guys are all know what is used for and what is the use. Now let's get into in depth of what are the options that we can use. Power Query editor is a self-service ETL tool. Now the moment we start this particular page, the left hand side you can see queries. The queries are the tables over here. So each table is treated as a queries. There can be number of queries under this particular section. In the right hand side, there's an option over here called properties. The properties consist the table name. Now under the properties, there's an option over called all properties. If you click over here, you can find an option over here where you can update the table name and you can give a short description of the table. So you can write it over here, employee data. Now if you can come down over here, you can see two options: enable load to report and include in report refresh. These two are very important option. The best way to understand these two options is to use one of the options which is available under home menu, that is append query. So I will show you how we can use append queries option in our discussion in the upcoming sessions. So in Power Query. So I will be spending a good amount of time in discussing the Power Query editor because it holds a very important place in data transformation, and this is what gives Power BI an edge over the other BI tool, because this allows you to slice and dice and transform your data, clean your data. Now coming to the next option is applied steps, one of the most important section of Power Query editor window. This particular applied step section records all the steps, all the operations that we perform on this particular data. For example, if I click on this particular column, do a right click, and you can remove this column, you can see this particular section is updated, and over here it's written as removed column. So I have removed a column from this particular data and that particular steps has been recorded. Now what is the importance of an applied step section in Power Query editor? It allows user, for example, if I pass this report to any other user, for example, if I pass this report to Ganesh, now if Ganesh comes to Power Query editor, he will be able to see that steps over here and he can easily identify that what are the operation that has been performed over here. So Ganesh can easily identify, okay, fine, so there's one column has been removed from this particular data. But the beauty of this particular option is that if you have performed any steps by mistake, you can easily undo that particular step. So for undoing that step, you can see there's a cross mark over here beside that particular step. You can click on this cross mark and that particular column will be back to your data model or data set. So this is the applied steps process. You can just have a look on this particular, you can see the types of options that has been performed in this particular data set. Now coming back to the data, every data has a column and every column has a column header associated with that. Now if you can see carefully, beside every column header there is a icon over here where it is an ABC for some column 1, 2, 3 or 1.2. These are called data types. In order to know the data types that are used in Power BI, you can click on this particular option and you can find the types of data types that is available in Power BI. So it starts from decimal number, fixed decimal number, whole number, percentage, date, time, and all the other data types that are available. Now, for example, sometimes what happens when you load the data, some of the data types may not be updated automatically. In most of the time, it's get updated. In case if it doesn't get updated, you can just select this particular icon and you can select the data types as per that column data. This is one way. Another way is you can do a right click on this particular column, any of the column, and you can find there are a lot of other options over here. For example, you can remove other columns, duplicate column, remove duplicate, remove error. Out of these, all these particular options available over here, there are two options that is very important, that is change type and transform. Now if you click on change type, you can see the same data types available over here. Now if you can see transform will allow you to play with the column data. Now let me show you an example of the transform. For example, if I select this incentive column, this is an incentive column. If I do a right click over here and I want to remove the decimal places from here, what I can do a right click over here, go to transform, select the round option, and further I can go for the round option again, and I click on round. Now Power Query editor will ask me to specify the number of decimal places that I want to make a round of. So let me give 0 over here and click on OK. You can see the decimal has been removed and all the numbers has been transformed to the next decimal places, the next whole number that can be possible. Now if you can watch carefully, there is a mistake that has been done in this particular column. I have made the round off, but the data types remains to be decimal. Now this kind of issue are rare, but in that case what you can do, even the column has been transformed from a whole number, the data types remains to be decimal. So you can click on this data type and you can go and select the whole number data type from the drop down. Or you can do a right click on this particular column, go to change type, and you can select a whole number option from here also. So there are two ways by which you can change the data type. So you can click on whole number and here we go. The data type has been updated. Now, these are the options that are available in this particular section. Now, if you can keep an eye, if you can focus on this particular area, you can see some piece of code associated with this. Now, this piece of code are generated by the Power Query editor in the background. Now, for each of the column, if you select a column, for each of the step, there is a code associated. You can see if you select the step from here, from the applied steps. Now each of the steps, when you perform, there is a back code that has been generated by Power Query editor. Now if you can see this code, you can go to one more option that is under home menu, that is called advanced editor. Now if you click on this advanced editor option, this advanced editor option contains the code which holds the schema of this particular table. Now if you can watch carefully to this code, there's nothing to frighten about this code. These are all background generated code in the background which is generated by Power Query editor. But you will be happy to know that we'll be working on this code where you guys will be creating a date table along with me. So I will show you how we can work on this particular code. These are very easy English code. You can just easily read and understand this code. For example, if you take the first line, it's easy to understand that the source of this particular table is defined over here, right? There's no big deal of understanding this code. People generally tends to get nervous. Okay, fine, again there is a code associated with this. There's nothing code, guys. There's simple English code. You can easily read this code and I can understand. I will help you to do that. The second is the name of the file. And the third, if you can see, all the steps that has been performed over here has been noted, like promoted headers. You can see promoted headers over here. Change type, you can see change type in the applied steps. It's nothing but all the steps that we have performed in this particular table are being updated over here. Now we'll be working extensively on this particular part also. And it's a very interesting part if you start liking this particular part. However, 90% of the task in Power Query editor is taken care by these options. You just need to select the correct options from here and your work is done. Now you have got a glance about how we can use this option by removing rows and all, how we can use the options from here. So there are three important options: the transform, the add column. Now we'll be working on these three options, all the options that is available over here. Now it's interesting to see that some of the options which are available in transform, like extract, is also available under add column also. You can find extract option under add column. Now we'll be working on this kind of options where we'll be working on both the options from transform and add, and we'll see what happens when you select an extract from add column section and what happens when you select an extract from a transform column option. So we'll get into this Power Query editor in detail from our next session. I hope whatever things I've discussed today was clear with you. Please go and explore this area. Power BI is a very interesting tool. And please join to my next session at 8 o'clock today for the Tableau. So in Tableau also today I'm going to discuss some more interesting topics. These two tools are market leaders in business intelligence. So please try to grip those tools in your knowledge, because data is everywhere. And when data is there, you need to torture it to the level that you can confess data to anything, to do anything for you. And that is what the beauty of working with data. And these tools will help you to understand those concepts. I hope I was able to clear the topics that were in line for today's discussions. Please stay safe and keep learning. Thank you.